And welcome to the Writer's Life, the place where you get the sight, sound, smells, taste of my particular writer's life, where you get the truth. Subscribe if you haven't already. Punch the like button because it likes to be punched. It likes it. It's like the heavy bag. And tap the bell for notifications. Just tap it lightly because the notifications bell is sensitive. It's like a snowflake. So yesterday, when I was talking about the writer's strike in Hollywood, I kept mentioning that it was for two basic reasons and other reasons too, but the two main reasons are streaming is taking away from their income, and AI is threatening their livelihood. But for some reason, I kept calling it IA. Now, I know I suspect I'm dyslexic, but I was saying IA, and I do articles on this stuff, and it wasn't even like ringing a bell that I was saying IA. I mean, my fans and the subscribers to this program are nice enough that no one was like, "You idiot," like only one person sent me a note saying like it's AI, dude, and I was like, yeah, I know, like, and I make a lot of gaffes, right? You know, I'm only human, whatever that song is from the 80s. And I make a lot of gaffes. We all make gaffes, but that one was like, dude, it's AI. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted. I watched this. One of the YouTube channels I subscribe to is. Oh, I can. Wait, hang on. It's coming to me. It's coming to me. I got to bear with me. Yeah, geez, I couldn't remember it for a second. Is Coach Colin. Coach Colin, check him out. He's got some great stuff, and sometimes inspirational stuff, sometimes newsy stuff, but it's always great content. His program's more professional than mine. He can bring on guests. He can he can show videos and all that sort of stuff. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm gonna get there. Maybe when I get back from Egypt. But anyway, he was doing this. He was talking about Joe Rogan's recent program with podcast with Dave Smith, and there was a portion of that program. It's episode 1977, by the way, as Coach points out, about following your dreams and the dangers of not following your dreams. And I remember I was like, I listened to it last week. It took me like 3 days, but I listened to it while I was pumping iron, which is what I typically do. I listen to podcasts and or the news, independent news, when I'm lifting weights. And both Dave Smith and Joe Rogan were like, "Wow, man, it's this thing inside us. It's this mysterious thing inside us that makes us want to become artists and writers and musicians and things like that. And if you don't follow it, if you don't follow your dream, you really end up setting yourself up for a life of frustration and even misery. Um, and I've spoken about my story before. I was going to be handed this multi-million-dollar construction company, and I really hated it. Yeah, I didn't like the work. I didn't like being in an office. I would use every excuse I could to like get I got to drive some blueprints out to so and so, or I got to go check on this, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. Because I couldn't stand being locked up in a cage all day, and I couldn't stand the thought of like 1 week vacation a year or 2 weeks maybe. I just, you had to work 6.5 days a week, whether you liked it or not. I chose not to work that half day, and that would irk my father because other guys would come in. And also, I was miserable all the time, right? It wasn't fair to the guys who chose this as their career and who worked for my dad. It wasn't fair to them that I was this like miserable little bastard all the time, because they wanted to succeed and they wanted to do a good job. And like, I think they were kind of like, dude, can you just find another job because you're like in the way? And who could blame them? Anyway, I did. I wanted to be a writer. So I went to writing school and I started becoming a freelance writer. And within a year out of writing school, at 31 or 32 years old, I got my first big book deal, $250,000, and I was on my way. And I've never looked back. And believe me, I've had some down years that like have cost me like, my relationships, or whatever. But I always, to me, I just stuck to my guns. And this is an ever-changing business. When I started as a writer, it was still like the 1980s model, 80s and early and mid 1900 or mid 20th century model of like, you got to get the agent, you got to submit the manuscript, you got to hope the agent likes it, then you got to do a million revisions, then he's got to, submit it to publishers, and you got to wait another 6 months, and you got to hope that they accept it, and if they accept it, you got to hope they give you enough money, and then you got to rewrite it again and hope that the rewrite passes. And like, what up? Oh my God, I'm lucky I didn't have a nervous breakdown half the time, because if you weren't worried about being published, you were even more worried about not being published. So it was just a crazy existence. So when the independent writing movement came in, I didn't embrace it at first, but I did a few years later, like 5 years later, even though I did work with publishers that were independent, quote, independent, but they went by the traditional agented model. And I killed it. I just absolutely killed it. And it led to some major deals with Thomas and Mercer and other public publishers and whatever. And now today, after being in this for 25 years, I can basically, there are some publishers I could just call and say, I got a manuscript for you. And they'll be like, sure, we'll get it on the schedule. I don't even have to read it. That said, I have my own company now, and I can publish as fast as I can write them. And that is so important. And I retain my intellectual property. So I get the best of both worlds, best of three worlds, really. I mean, and I'm happy, like I love every day, right? And so because I love every day, my life is going by fast. It really does go by faster when you're happy with what you're doing. Like, I'll never retire, right? I mean, you don't retire from being an artist. You just don't, right? It's not like, oh, well, today's the day I'm going to retire and do nothing, No, I'm going to hopefully face plant in my laptop, and that'll be it, if I'm lucky. But do you think if I was running a construction business, I'd be able to go off to Egypt for 2 weeks next week? Do you think I'd be able to go to Italy for, I don't know, anywhere from 1 to 6 months to however long I want to be there? I can work from anywhere. I wouldn't be able to. I would be stuck in a suburb, probably fat, probably bald, miserable. And, like all I would be looking forward to is coming home, drinking my face off, and lying on the couch watching TV. That would be it. And maybe it's an exaggeration, maybe not, but that's what I pictured. And so it just, when I made I've never regretted my decision ever, even though it was hard at times. And like Coach Collins, well, like Dave Smith said, like if you're young, you really got to consider this, you got to really consider following your dreams. But Coach Collins said, fuck that. I don't care if you're old or older. And he told a story about his mother, who was about my age at the time, who got fired from her job, her office job. And she's like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back to any of that stuff. I'm going to start my own business. And she made a huge success out of it. Good for her. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's not even so much following your dreams as it is independence. You want to be independent. You don't ever want to work for the man, because in those situations, the government gets paid first, the owner of the business gets paid second, you get paid third. When you own your own operation, you get paid first. Think about that. All right, somebody chimed in. I got to check this out. It's Frank. I committed to my mission of being insanely prolific with my short fiction, on the road to 1,000 published short stories in my lifetime, keeping the dream alive. Peace, Vince. Or preach, Vince. Right on, Frank. My philosophy exactly. Just keep it going. Keep it going. When you write the end that afternoon, you should fade into something brand new. Why not? It's what we do. You think a surgeon performs surgery on a Monday and then that's it for 2 months? No, they could perform 2 surgeries in a day probably. I don't know. 3 surgeries maybe? I don't know. My oral surgeon says he does 8 a day. Imagine that. Don't you think by the 8th one he'd be like, oops? That's for another video. All right. This is going on too long, but you get my point. Frank, thanks for chiming in. I will talk to you guys, God willing, tomorrow. And ciao, ciao.